Me again. Good morning. So, I want to start my homily this morning with a quote from English poet Alexander Pope. To err is human, to forgive, divine. I think it's safe to say he is correct, or at least the popularity of the quote lends me to think as much. I would only add that yes, to err, to make mistakes is human, but so too is the act of struggling. Many of us seek out perfection in countless aspects of our lives. It is a never-ending quest we strive towards because, simply put, perfection is unattainable. Even if you somehow achieved it, you'd undoubtedly then just adjust the goal further along the line. Yet, as one of life's best adages, Murphy's Law attests, what can go wrong will go wrong. Even so, our first principle, and perhaps our most popular, asks us to believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We practice divinity every day in loving and forgiving each other, past our mistakes, past our idiosyncrasies, and across the things which make us feel different. We are called to respect and hold sacred those who look like us and those who don't. Those who think like us, or even those we may believe think not at all. We are called to hold out for and on to the goodness that exists and could exist in all beings. To appreciate and cherish each other, whether we show that love through shared words of thanks and gratitude, physical affection like a hug or a smile, or spiritual connection with prayers and healing energies. It is easy to see the worthiness of the first principle of Unitarian Universalism with its strong ties to humanist teachings and its beginnings. I read a quote once that I'd like to share with you. As hard as I tried to find the exact wording or source, I couldn't find it, but it did go a little something like this. You will never lie there on your deathbed wishing that you hadn't been so kind, that you had been crueler or more mean-hearted. Let's be frank, though. Sometimes the first principle, it can be challenging. It can be hard to feel compassion and a desire to be a ray of sunshine for the boss who just fired you. Impossible to see the dignity of the neighbor who still waves a Confederate flag with glee and talks about the good old days. The family member who says they love you for who you are, but votes regularly to strip away your right to stay married to your partner, adopt a child in a loving home, or just exist legally to live your life as the best transgender person you can be. Yes, it can be quite challenging to knock on the door to love and say yes. I'd like us all to participate in a brief activity. No movement needed, you can stay seated. I'd like you to take a few moments to think of all the people and all the things you love, that you hold space in your heart for and that bring you joy. And after a few moments, I'll ask you to share one or two with a neighbor or on Zoom with each other. Go ahead and think about that. What do you love? What do you hold space for in your heart? And if you would, share one or two with your neighbor or on Zoom with each other. I love my family, this church, and what it stands for. And I hope it was very easy for you to come up in your head in that short time of a multitude of people and things that you treasure. I'd like to ask you this question, though, to conclude the activity, and you don't have to share it this time with anyone. You can hold this in your heart instead. How far along the list would you go before you think to name yourself? Where do you rank yourself among all that you hold near and dear to your heart? I want to share a bit more with you about my experience with the first principle because we are called to observe the inherent dignity of worth of every person. And it's that one word I balk at, every. Since the tender age of 10, I fought daily to enjoy a life some people don't give a second thought to. While classmates enjoyed their recesses and laughed at jokes together, I was getting diagnosed with major depression and starting therapy. I spent time with my school guidance counselor during my 5th year at elementary school. Feelings of loneliness and self-hatred, they only grew during middle and high school. This isn't to say I didn't find moments of happiness, but it was a struggle for me, one that culminated on the eve of my 19th birthday. You see, on the heels of a dramatic breakup, a tense relationship with a parent who still struggled to accept my sexuality, a no longer functional relationship with another who chose to leave behind his family for a new one, and in the throes of my first year of college, 6 hours away from home, my depressive state reached its climax. I was at my lowest, and I had determined in my overwhelmed haze that my life was no longer worth enduring, because that's what it had been for almost a decade, an endurance marathon of a depression which never relented. With all that weighed so heavily on my mind, I found myself sitting in a parking lot near a busy intersection and contemplated the ways out that loomed before me. When I got a call from my best friend back home asking me what was going on, my heart seized at the idea of them worrying about me, knowing what was wrong going through my mind. I couldn't speak to them about it, so I simply told them, I can't talk right now. I love you, and I hung up. I sat another 20 minutes in that parking lot, eventually experiencing a transcendental moment, a miraculous flight into health, which abruptly came on and lent me the strength to call a friend from the university to come pick me up, take me to campus police so I could go ahead and begin the intake process. I knew that having hit rock bottom, I was terrified, felt as unsure as a newborn, but I found I wanted to live life. For the first moment in almost a decade, I wasn't balancing my depression and ideation with the struggle to stay alive. I wanted to live. It was the first time I found the inherent worth and dignity of my life. I have never been that low since, and I hope against all hope that I will never be there again. This isn't to say there haven't been rough days. As I admitted, I do still struggle with the every part, but I found kinship in the South Carolinian motto, Dum Spiro Spero. While I breathe, I hope. I try to maintain hope in every breath for the joys and wonders of the universe. 3 nephews, a college degree, a spouse who loves me. There have been many things I've gained since that February day in 2009. Most importantly, I've gained this congregation, which encourages me to love myself and others every day. So today, I would like to call you all into action. In our country, 1 in 5 adults, 20% of the population, experience a mental illness in their lifetime, with about 10 million people in the United States living with a serious mental illness. About 7% of Americans have been diagnosed with major depression. 18% of Americans live with anxiety disorders. And most startlingly, half of all chronic mental illnesses, they begin by the age of 14. Think about the youth we have in our congregation. There are millions affected by mental illness. It is not an unusual disease. Chances are you or someone you know closely, maybe a friend or family member, are afflicted. You would think there would be less stigma, but that's not always the case. People treat it like it is catching. It is, as Reverend Barbara Myers calls it, a no casserole disease, the kind of illness meal trains and casseroles aren't made for. Treated like a bad luck penny many don't want to rub up against. The kind of illness we don't talk about until it's too late. So I call us to embrace ourselves, to center ourselves in life's chaos when everything feels too much, to embrace the air moving through our lungs as hope, hope for a better today or tomorrow, to feel with all the gravity possible the solidity of the earth and the blessings and bounty it brings. I call us to silence the little critic that judges us the harshest when we are reflecting on our day, our week, our lives. I call you to be gentle and give yourself grace when feeling things are hard. I call us to check in instead of checking out of each other's hardships, to make it a practice that when we see something, we say something. After all, this isn't just a spiritual home. This is a family. And if there's one thing I learned from watching Disney's Lilo and Stitch about 1,000,000 times as a child, is that family means nothing left behind or forgotten. I ask you to knock on the door to loving yourself and to open it wide with gusto. What small act can you embrace today to love yourself? And if love feels too strong a word, to give yourself acceptance or grace. Let us embrace the struggle and treat ourselves and each other when we struggle with grace, so that every person, including ourselves, begin to feel worth and dignity. Polish-American Rabbi Abraham Heschel said, "Just to be is a blessing. Just to live is holy." Just to live is holy. So live and be holy. Forgive yourself and be divine. Love others, yes, but grow to love, honor, and cherish yourself most. And now, please rise, embody your spirit, and join me in singing hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us. I have a benediction for you, and it's by Kirk D. Lodeman Copeland. We are called to gather in worship as a beloved community. We are called to set aside distractions and anxieties, that we might touch deeper springs and be renewed. We are called to seek and to share comfort for the hurt that afflicts. We are called to desire more love, more justice, and life more abundant. We are called to truth, to mercy, to humility, and to courage. Let us answer the call with the yes of our lives.
And now I will say the words for extinguishing the chalice. Jess, you want to come up? Which will be shown on the screen. Go right on over. You get to put it out now. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now if you would lift your hands up were our final words by Eric Walker Wickstrom. I put my hand in yours so that together we might do what we cannot do alone.
Me again. So a service like this would be remiss without some resources shared for you. That will be shown on the screen behind me. I'd like everyone to be aware of these. We had the Trevor Project, which is for LGBTQIA individuals of all ages who need support. Information about Trans Lifeline, a volunteer lifeline staffed and meant for transgender individuals. Information about the National Suicide Crisis Hotline, where you can call or text 988, as well as special information for veterans who are in need. There's also the Crisis Text Line, which is another resource that you can utilize. And of course, this is CVUU, so last but not least, information about our own lake pastoral care team and the caring team. Please remember you are not alone. Also, please consider joining CVUU next month on September 9th, which is a Saturday, at the Out of the Darkness Community Walk. It will take place at Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach, and it will start at 10 a.m. I will be there around 9:30 a.m. for those early birds like myself who like to gather a little early. It is a journey of remembrance, hope, and support for those who are impacted by others who have committed suicide. We will also be hosting a safe space upstairs at 12:15 in room 201 if you need to decompress after this service, 12:15, so that you can have time to go to the bathroom or get coffee. Thank you.